Here's what I'll do. I definitely want to ask you about some of your policies and stuff like this, but I want to show you this graph, and I want to ask you about Black Lives Matter. So this is the overall support versus opposition, and neither support nor oppose and unsure. And what I want to do is show net support. So this is where Black Lives Matter stands right now. This is a really interesting thing I noticed, that before the George Floyd incident happened, 17% net support for Black Lives Matter. Mm-hmm. It peaked around 25% when, the George Floyd incident happened. Everybody was shocked. I mean, Sean Hannity had come out and said, this is wrong. I can't believe this.
I was shocked, yeah.
Then they riot. And they riot more, and they riot more, and they riot more. And now today, net support is 6 points lower at 11% than where it was before the George Floyd incident.
Yeah.
So first, I'll just ask you about the riots. Because these, a lot of people like to say Antifa, right? Mm-hmm. But I've said, no way, man. These people are chanting Black Lives Matter.
Yeah.
They're going out in Portland with Molotovs in Seattle. They're doing it in the name of Black Lives Matter, not Antifa, not, Marxism or whatever, people think. It's literally about police brutality and issues like George Floyd. I'm just curious on your thoughts on that. And then, I got another question for you.
Yeah, absolutely. So first of all, I am not a fan of Black Lives Matter. What's interesting? I don't know many Black Americans that are fans of Black Lives Matter. Very interesting fact there. For me, this is a situation where I feel like there's definitely an agenda. If you look at it, and in 2015, after the death of Freddie Gray, we had our riots and the
I was
looting.
there, and Adam, you met him earlier. He was there too.
Okay, yes.
Yeah,
you saw it up close and personal.
Yeah.
And a lot of the people that were arrested were people that didn't even live there, right? The bad actors are almost being bussed in, to cause chaos, and then they leave and they go to another city and do the same. And so it's very interesting to me. I don't think it's a real organization. I think it's a front for something else. I'm not into conspiracy theories. I hear the Trump's administration's investigating it.
Really?
Yeah, so wow. I'm interested to see what happens.
Because I know that I think they have what's it called? Is it called like Thousand Currents? I think.
Oh, I'm not sure. I'll have to look it up.
Definitely. There's an organization that collects money on their behalf.
Okay.
And then it goes through Act Blue. Here's what's fascinating to me. We keep hearing from people like, I think de Blasio said this, I could be wrong, but there's been several organizations saying Black Lives Matter is not a political organization. It's social justice. But their fundraising goes through Act Blue, which
sure does, yeah.
It's the Democrats' fundraising organization.
Right.
So you're going to tell me it's not political? It's literally running money through their fundraising arm. I know a lot of people have had, thought there's a bigger conspiracy about people donate to Black Lives Matter and then it goes to Biden or something. I don't think that's true, because that would be a weird, that's got to be completely illegal to take donations for Black Lives Matter and then give it to a political candidate. I don't think maybe there's something there, but it definitely seems strange, to say the least. I don't know if you knew this, but there was another Black Lives Matter foundation based out of, I think, California, that formed in 2014, and it's very small. And the guys brought in like a couple $100,000 over the past several years. And it was just one black dude who was like, I got an idea. I'm going to run an organization. I'm going to raise money. And he said his goal is to bring the police and the communities together so that, the police can be more familiar with the people who live there and they can know who their police are. And he was basically saying, the proximity and the familiarity will help resolve a lot of the tensions. Like a cop's less likely to attack somebody if he knows the neighborhood and he might know who that person is.
Right.
Probably not going to know everybody. But here's the crazy thing. They went after him. And apparently some activists got like an injunction to like freeze his donations, GoFundMe or something like that, like seized his like fundraiser and gave it to the other organization. Yeah, that to me was crazy. I mean, I don't.
Is it because it was also Black Lives Matter and they own that, right? Okay.
Well, I don't think they own it because he had it first. They just came out and said he's not the real one, and he's like, "But I've had the name first."
Wow.
Yeah,
that's
crazy.
Interesting.
Well,
that's interesting.
I'll tell you what's interesting. You mentioned you don't know anybody. You said you didn't know any black people who supported Black Lives Matter. For the most part.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't.
Take a look at this. This is what I wanted to ask you about. I find this is interesting. So this is Civics. They've got 162,220 responses from April 25th, 2017 to September 9th, 2020. And they say, among registered voters, black or African American, 88% say they support Black Lives Matter.
That's interesting.
Yeah. And then we got 5% oppose.
So that's interesting. I don't know how I don't know the 88%.
Maybe it's not real.
Yeah, I guess this is what I say, and people that I know say. Like you said, it goes through Act Blue, right? The money.
Yeah.
Has there been any instances where any of that money has actually gone to the Black community?
I don't think so in terms of anything I've seen in the news. Or
I haven't found anything. I've tried to do some research.
Well, you know what they do? Because this is my insight into all these nonprofits. It's a very, very clever way to claim that all of the money is for charitable causes. Awareness.
Oh, yes. Oh, I love those. It's like the big corporations, right? When you look at Apple, you look at different organizations, they put $100 million into inclusive training, right? That the whole like, oh, we're going to talk about how to, meanwhile, you look at how many Black people they have in like their top executive positions, 2%. I'm like, so you really care about Black lives? Because you don't hire any Black people, right? You're not employing them. And I'm not saying people should be employed based on their color, but that I find that interesting. You know, there's a lot of corporations that say they have this training and they're raising awareness. But then you look at their executive offices and you don't see any people of color.
It's corporations trying to shield themselves from the latest trend.
Right.
And it's going to backfire on them really, really bad. There was a post I just saw recently. I can't remember who it was from, but I think something like the New York Times wrote a story saying like we mapped the most powerful people in the country and it's like 18% are non-white. And I think it was the New York Times. And then someone showed that all of the top New York Times staff, it's all white people. So they want to act like we're pointing out a serious problem, but don't look where we are.
Yeah.
It's seriously the rules for thee, but not for me. It's like everything they do.
Yeah, no, seriously. I was shocked when I saw Twitter. They have their main Twitter support page, right? And it was all blacked out. Like they're so supportive, but we already knew it was already ousted, I think a year ago, that they didn't hire any Black people. So it's like, you know, I don't understand it. I don't get it. I know that they're not trying to be a part of that cancel culture, so they're covering their butts, but I don't think they realize people aren't stupid. You know,
Yeah.
We see it. So I don't know how we got to this 88%, but I better do my due diligence and figure it out.
You think there's a possibility that you're in a bubble and you're just not around the people?
That could be, you know, West Baltimore, all Black. No, I'm not in a bubble.
Yeah, you'd have to. Right. I have to ask though, you know, because I think a lot of these journalists don't realize they're definitely in a bubble.
Oh my gosh, yes. This is I get in a fight all the time with Richard Fowler on Fox News.
No.
Oh my gosh.
Who is he?
He kills me. So he's a guy that basically lives at Fox News studio, right? And he likes to come on and tell people, he's a Black guy, about how hard it is to be Black in America. I'm like, dude, when is the last time you've ever been in a predominantly Black neighborhood? He couldn't answer that. He could not. And supposedly he's from Chicago, but not like Chicago, because Gianno Caldwell called him out on it. And I don't know what the name of the town was.
I bet it's Naperville or something.
He was like,
these are like the west suburbs.
Yeah, he was like, dude, you're not from Chicago. Don't you claim Chicago? But there's a lot of people in the media that lives in,
what's his name again?
Richard Fowler.
Richard Fowler.
Yeah.
Yes. I actually was just in a fight with him just last week on Fox News.
What did you guys argue about?
Well, he was trying to tell me how great Biden was, but then he was also telling me how America's policies were so racist. And I'm like, interesting. So Biden had 50 years to change some of those racist policies, but he didn't. So,
yeah, and he was vice president for Obama.
Yeah, so tell me again, how is he for Black people? The guy that did the 1994 crime bill. Yes.
Yeah, super.
Yeah,
super
he's that guy.
I couldn't figure out where he was from on a quick glance. But being from Chicago, there's always people who say, they'll be like, yo, I'm from Chicago. And I'll say, oh, cool. Which part? Well, Naperville.
It's Evanston.
Evanston.
Yeah. Yes, that's it. That's
Evanston.
it. Oh my gosh, that's it.
Evanston.
All right, Tim, tell us about Evanston.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's Evanston. Look, I'm not going to pretend like Evanston is the wealthiest place in the world, but it's I'm pretty sure it's like a north side, and it's nice.
Yeah.
It's pretty nice.
Yeah.
And there are definitely nicer areas of Chicago for sure. Mm-hmm. But if you tell someone you're from Evanston, they're going to be like, wow, where did your parents work? Like they must have had great jobs.
Yeah.
You tell people from the south side of Chicago and they'll be like, slinging burgers and or working in the coal mines, huh? Like,
yeah.
So, but I will point something out. To be fair, although I don't think this impacted him, it's really interesting. We have this defund the police narrative. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez was asked about what she envisions this, will look like if you defund the police, and she says the suburbs. It's really funny when, first, just to provide a critique on that. Well, the suburbs aren't as densely populated as the cities, so you have less people per square mile. So sure, you'll need less police. It just makes sense. And but more to the point, to be fair, people from the poor areas actually go to the north side and go to the wealthier areas to commit crimes because you can't rob poor people.
Right.
But you do have more violent crime in the poor areas because of the conflict between people.
Right.
So if you live in a place like Evanston, I don't think you're really in a position to criticize someone about living in a hard area. And I mean, to be fair too, I was reading a tweet from it was a woman. She was white, and she was talking about misconceptions around crime. And for people who grow up in places like, I'll ask you your feelings on this in a second. I grew up on the southwest side. It was kind of bad, not the worst, because there's other parts of the south side and the west side that are way worse. But there were shootings, there were drug overdoses and stuff, and it was normal to us. So when gangbangers would pull up and start firing guns, or when fights would break out and people were armed, we were kind of just like, this is normal life where we are. And then when you tell that to other people, they're shocked to hear it and they're scared of it, not realizing that it's not like every day someone comes out with a gun and starts firing in the air. Right. But you hear gunshots at night, periodically. So I'm wondering, is it similar being in West Baltimore with the normalization of potential violence and things like that?
It's very similar. It's to the point where shots are fired and nobody even turns around. Wow. You know what I mean? No one turns around. But a lot of people understand, and this is what I come to understand. Just so you know, I've been spending a lot of time on the streets because I want to truly understand from their point of view. But people will say, we know it's usually a retaliation situation. And if I'm not in it, usually that bullet's for someone else, right?
Yeah.
And I think it's sad that, that is the norm. To walk up and down the streets and to see all the needles, to see just everything out there. And to them, it's normal. Kids walking past it to school, normal day, just walking up the street. And so that's what it becomes. Like the quality of life becomes normalized and it's getting worse and worse. And so when you're pointing out the trash, you got some people that were saying, well, how dare you point out those streets? We know they're filled with trash. We're used to that. It's like, you don't have to live this way, right? It shouldn't be like this. There shouldn't be 17,000 vacant homes just sitting there. I mean, it's insane to me, but I understand it because, like you said, it's normal everyday life.
Did Elijah Cummings live in the district?
Supposedly he did. So this is the crazy part about the district. There's Howard County, Baltimore County, and then West Baltimore. Howard County is a very wealthy area, right? And then you have Baltimore County, you go up north, it goes all the way up to the Pennsylvania line, again, very wealthy. So when this was redistricted in 2013, it looked as if he was doing great because you had these wealthy areas attached to West Baltimore.
And then he could live in the wealthy area away from the...
Exactly. And so when people get on me and they're like, well, she doesn't exactly live there. And I'm thinking, yeah, I could live in a mansion over in Parkton if you want. Or I could spend a lot of time in West Baltimore trying to understand the issues. What would you like to come at me with?
You know what I learned about Chicago? One of the problems with solving the problem. One of the problems in solving the problems is that if the people who live there are not receiving any kind of support from their locals and they're just going about their lives and there's trash everywhere and there's violence, what I hear from people outside saying, we're going to solve this problem. And you ask them, do you know why there's violence in Chicago? I don't want to put you on the spot, but I'm curious what your thoughts are not living in Chicago. Do you know what the cause of... You've heard about Chicago gun violence and they call it Chirac. Do you know what causes the violence?
I would think everything around it, right? The education system, the lack of opportunity.
That is the best answer I've heard so far because it is. So people always say gangs.
They just jump right up to the gang. Okay,
they think that the gangs are fighting over terror and stuff, and it's not.
Right.
It really does have to do with the living conditions, the standard of living, the culture, the education, and a lot of. So I went on. I went what's called night crawling. So a local journalist. We met up at 2 a.m. or whatever.
This sounds so fun already.
Oh man, but I don't know. If you want to be a journalist tracking murders and stuff and reporting on this stuff,
yeah.
It takes a strong stomach, I'll tell you what, and you need a strong heart and a strong stomach to see some of these things. But some of the stories that we went to, it was in one instance, somebody had a personal argument on social media, and so they drove up and started shooting into a building they thought belonged to the person, and it didn't, and 2 people were killed. Another story, another shooting we found was a guy was gunned down on the sidewalk because he was smack talking the other guy on social media. I kid you not. So it turned out a lot of these killings were basically just people had beef, and they, for whatever reason, they were like, the solution to my problems, if you talk smack to me, I kill you.
Right.
So it really does not have a lot to do with gangs. And if you don't understand the community, the culture, and how to solve those problems, because you're just assuming there's some buzzword that can be the easy. It's like they think there's an easy solution where it's like, if I just take this one piece out of the puzzle, then the problem's solved. Not realizing it's systemic.
Right.
It's education. It's a lack of leadership.
Yep.
And I believe a lot of it has to do with what we were talking about earlier. When there's one party rule, there's no competition.
Yeah.
No one has to come in and say, "Here's my proposal," and when the locals try, they're completely ignored.
Yeah.
I wonder, and when I hear about when I asked about Elijah living in the district, do you think that they gerrymandered on purpose so that they can live in a wealthy, clean area and then represent and ignore?
It was that, and then also, so you have to understand also, in Baltimore City, we have 13 high schools where kids graduate unable to do basic math or read or write, right? And so a lot of those schools are in the West Baltimore area. But if you put those on with the schools in Howard County, which are great, right? And in Baltimore County, Sparks, all that, then it doesn't look like the schools are that bad, right? So it was literally like they were just making sure, okay, yeah, we got this problem, but, put the good areas over it. Hopefully nobody sees it.
Then it averages out.
Exactly. And that's what it was about.
Oof.
And that's what it was about. And so Governor Martin O'Malley actually admitted to redistricting some areas to do, that. And so now, they're going to look at drawing the lines. But this is why chipping away is so important. Because if they redistrict and you've been chipping away in some of these areas and it actually makes sense, okay, Howard County and Baltimore County, they have a lot more in common than anybody in West Baltimore. When they redistrict, chipping away might equal in a Republican win, you know? And so it's but if we don't chip away, again, we're just not in the running. So
just to clarify the idea of chipping away, it's just trying to build up as much support for the Republicans slowly, even if it's a little bit.
Yes, and then it takes work. I know a lot of people don't, I understand politics. Not everybody in government wants to work. But it does. It takes grassroots efforts. It takes you getting out there and working every single day.
Thanks for checking out this clip from the Timcast IRL podcast. We do the show live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. So come back to check us out when we go live. Don't forget to subscribe, hit the like button, hit the notification bell, and we are also available on all podcast platforms for free if you want to listen to us there. Thanks for hanging out, and we will see you all next time.